Hey folks, Mr. Justin here with Secret Weapon Miniatures and another Workbench Wednesday. First, I want to thank you for joining me this week, and I hope you've come prepared to ask some questions and have some fun. First thing I'm doing this week is actually working on some masters for a new set of bases we've got coming out. Get the keyboard out of the way here, and let's get started. Alright, these are the masters so far for what we're calling the Silent Halls set of bases. And I have just about all of the sizes we need to get the set launched, hopefully for a December release. Excuse me, November release. But they need to be detailed at this point. Just giving you guys, you know, flat detail like this, not going to happen. Especially since this set of bases actually matches up exactly with our existing ruined temple bases. We talked about that a bit last week, so you can see how the lines all work together. And yeah, so we'll actually have 3 sets of bases, 3 different themes that'll all be interchangeable. Similar details in terms of the lines, and very different details here in the center areas, those larger flat areas. Again, giving you more options when it comes to basing your army so that you're not stuck with as many repeats. It's not fun. Alright, let me see how folks are doing. Oh, we've got folks here now. That's great. Well, I'm going to get some music going, and I'm going to get started on work. Alright. I think I mentioned last week that my preferred tool for a lot of this is actually one of the little micro screwdriver things. Bring that camera down a bit. Bring it a little closer to the work for the moment. Let's see, I'll start on this one just because it happens to be here. I'll put the other ones away. Now this is a different set of masters than what I started doing last week. I was going to go for more height on the bases. I was going to make them raised, but given that the ruined temple are so uniform in height, decided to reverse track on that and ensure that they had that uniformity to them. So this is a different set of masters. They're all nice and flat in here. But what that means for the moment, boom, there we go. Let me find. Oh, remodel. You say my gloves should be on the wall, but they're on the desk. Putting on the gloves should make it easier for the camera to focus on what's white. The music is a little loud. That's bizarre. It must be adding it to the stream, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. It's certainly not supposed to. I have it set to not broadcast system sound, but last week I had to reinstall the software after an update went sideways. So I spent part of the morning today resetting all of the cameras, the white balances, focus, audio inputs, all of that. So I may have missed a little something. But all right, here I am. I've got my handy dandy little micro screwdriver. I think I got this from one of our, nope, that's one of my electrical supply folks, not my optometrist. I have a bunch of these for glass repair kits and whatnot. Alright, so what I like about this one is it already comes with a nice shape, right? We've got that little Phillips head shape on the front. So the first thing I'm going to do is, since I have some bubbles in here, is weather those. So I can get nice, detailed little chips out of that. Come on, camera. Don't make me do it manually. I will. And we see that again on the video over here that I so foolishly tossed aside, where you can really see the nice chip detail on that inside edge there. Eventually. So I'm going to chip away at this for a bit. Sorry I can't put on the music. I'll get that setting fixed for next week, that's for sure. It's generally Primus or Tom Waits for me when I'm working. Although the other day it was all about beep beep, I'm a sheep. And hey everybody, we've got lots of folks chatting now. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Those of you that just arrived, thanks for joining us. All right, let's see what I can do about that focus again. Get a bit of this more chipped, and then I'll do some manual focus for you. This can be a real pain on your fingers, especially since I'm not using plaster of Paris here. This is a nice heavy hydrocal, nice and dense. So I'm actually just scraping it on this section here to get to isolate some of that flat surface. Having done that, grab my brass brush right here. Brian is asking what the logic is behind using hydrocal instead of plaster of Paris, and it's a great question. Density of the material. Hydrocal is one of the materials that I use on a regular basis. I do have some plaster of Paris. I use it where soft stone is going to be welcome, where I'm going to get bigger chips out of it, where it's easier to carve because it's so soft. In the case of hydrocal, it's substantially more dense. It does behave more like stone would. And then there's even after that, I have a 20-pound box of hydro stone out in the garage that I would use for incredibly tough plaster plates, where I was going to be doing, I don't know, something crazy with them, like using it in a diorama or display or something like that. If I was actually going to create a plaster wall, I would do that with the hydro stone. So I'm just taking a plaster brush, or I'm sorry, a brass brush now, and on that nice flat section, and I'm going to keep rotating it to make sure I don't get too much of a repeatable pattern. Just creating tiny imperfections. This does several things for me. One, it makes the texture more interesting because the hydrocal comes out nice and smooth. Our mold is smooth, so of course the result here is smooth. And rather than put the same texture into that mold, I create it uniquely on each base. So I'm going to hit this other corner here, and then I'll do some manual focusing. I'm not worried about having it add some texture to the rest of the base. Also going to clean off this edge a bit. All right, let's do this. Configure. Autofocus. No. All right, let's get started in here. It's not going to do it. Do it. Do it, do it, do it. All right. So you can start to see that texture. It's a little hard to capture at the light, but there you go. Now you can see that. And now I have that here as well. And the start of these chips, how I'm getting that nice rough texture in there. There we go. That helps a lot. It gets a little less light on this. So you can see how I've isolated some of those sections, and I've started to put breaks here into the thinner tiles. And I'll just expand on that for a couple of minutes. Jess is asking, do I have multiple bangy wire brushes? Follow-up, do you attempt to reshape that one at any point? Yes, I do. I have lots and lots of different brass and steel brushes. I can grab another one just sitting here. It's a little newer and a lot less beat up. Do I try to reshape it? Oh gosh, no. You can usually get like a 6-pack of these at your local Ace Hardware or something for $1. So no, I don't try to reshape them. I actually have a whole collection of these at different stiffnesses that I will use to create texture on all sorts of things, not just the plaster, but on styrene plastic models as well. If I knew these were going to be streamed going forward, I could use a gray hydrocal or plaster if that would help on camera. Yeah, that's true. I could certainly tint this. Of course, I didn't start the set considering that I might be sitting here on camera detailing it. It was just a fun project that I'm really excited to do this week. So this is actually what I would choose to be doing with my time today. We set the Workbench Wednesday aside so that instead of just making videos for work, well, I get a chance to make a video for work that's entirely about what I want to work on. So I'm a little bit forced to work on fun hobby projects. And I have a couple of my projects today that I'm going to make myself work on. But I'm actually really looking forward to this. I really enjoy weathering these sets, detailing the hydrocal. I love working with hydrocal, actually. I try not to go into this stage with too much of an idea already in my head on what I want to accomplish, because I have a lot more fun just chasing the plaster around. Now here, it's going to get crazy and it's going to get a little loud. I'm going to take this and I'm going to go dugga 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 dugga. Kind of gently, believe it or not. I am being careful. I am following that line I just made. And because the hydrocal is so dense, I can get a great texture out of that. So you can see all the cracks coming into here, the tiny little 4-pointed dots that look like nice little shell impacts, small shell impacts. It's great fun. And it means I get to, you know, whack stuff with a screwdriver, so that doesn't help, or it doesn't hurt either. All right, we've got some comments here. What do we got? That's a great point. Somebody just pointed out I can adjust the white balance, and you know what? I will do that real quick. I can actually do that on just the one camera. Look at that. Boom. That should make this a bit more visible for you. Yeah, a lot more detail. Thank you for the tip. Thank you very much for the tip. Now you guys can actually see what I'm doing. All right, let's get. Where do I want to whack with it? Screwdriver. I want to whack right over here. I'm going to get this whole little area right here. I want that to be pretty banged up. I'm going to do it at angles. Straight up and down, move it around. Get a look at that. There we go. Starting to work. Now one thing that's always fun to do, we've got a little slightly larger impact crater over here. This is one of the fun, really messy projects, of course. So I am actually just trying to press this in here, make a little divot. There we go. Start to pull up a big chunk there. Don't want that, so what I have, right there, you see that little piece coming up? Actually, I do want that. That's going to look great. I pulled it out. I was going to say I could always glue it back in place and smooth it out with some plaster, but no, I like the way that looks. So I'm going to take out that little chunk. It's going to really work with our little impact crater here. And being careful to angle this in towards the center of that spot. Clean it out often so I can see what I'm doing. Carefully bang up that area around it. Start to come out a little more sideways. All right. The radius of our impact crater. There we go. And here's the start of that. Let's get the focus not so auto again. There we are. But that is still pretty chunky. So the next thing I'm going to do, I had a hobby knife out already. I can always get to them here on the wall, of course, but I had one out. All right, so now I'm going to take that, and with the tip of a reasonably fresh blade, you can see how I have some lines that have already been created in here. I'm going to work with those and very gently scratch in some additional lines. I'm going to start by pressing, or by pushing towards the crater gently, and then I'm going to come out after the fact, turn the blade away from my finger, and follow it, very light chipping motion forward. To make it rough, but that initial gentle push towards the center of the impact crater gives me something to follow so that it's not random, because I don't want this part to be random. I want this to follow logical lines. And then between them, where I don't mind if it's going to be somewhat random, I'll just drag it forward a bit. And it looks a little something, something like this. So I'm going to set that one aside for a minute. I'm going to work on one other for now, and then I'm going to pick up a different project, I think. I want to talk about moss, dross, foliage, that sort of thing today. It was actually a request from Jess Rich. And I have some great examples for that. I actually have some material that I remember to bring out of the garage prior to coming into the studio today. Not that it's far from one to the other, of course. Hey, Jeffrey Higgins, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're getting quite a crowd today. Nice to see everybody, and thank you again for joining me on Wednesday. Excuse me. All right. So this one has a larger single section. For at least one of these, I wanted to capture Le Fleur very clearly. So I'm doing what I did originally on that other flat space, or rather, not originally, what I did last time on this flat space. Banging in some texture. A little more. I have a handful of other tools I'll use for creating texture like this as well, including steel wool. Big pile of that in my kit over here in the drawers. I'll even put wire polishers on my rotary tool. To answer Emily's question, I am using the standalone mic clipped here on the lapel. But yeah, the audio quality is not what it was prior to having to reinstall. So obviously I need to go in and fiddle with the mic settings. All right. So there's the start of that one. And actually, before I get carried away on this one, even though, like I said, it's how I'd like to spend some time today, I do want to go ahead and I'm going to start in on some moss and dross. And yeah, today I focused on the camera settings, which should all be better. And thanks to a tip earlier, got the white balance goofed over here so that you guys could actually see what I was working on there. But now, it reminds me I should go ahead and set that back. Boom. There we are. And talk about moss and dross and foliage and oh my gosh, all these fun things. One of my favorite topics, and I'm glad that Jess asked. I'm going to set the bases aside, and well, let's actually start with some pictures. This is a piece I made for my wife as a gift. It's a scene from Castle in the Sky using available products. And in this case, it's got a good example of all sorts of different foliage, including some moss. This is a close-up of the floor of that piece. And yeah, you can see tiny flowers. What you won't see outside of the tall clumps is static grass. Draw your attention to the fact that even at this scale, a field full of static grass would have been a little off-putting. It would not, at least in my opinion, have looked as realistic at scale. And same thing here for the moss. I do moss a bit differently now, but this is still a good way. And yeah, same thing. It's much the same foliage that you'll actually find here on the floor, just in a different color range. So let's talk about how I do some of these things. Let's get some bases. It's funny, you think I'd have some bases like sitting around, but who does that? I'll use one of the new 80s for the moment. All right. We'll talk about ground covers first. I do have, oh my gosh, such a stash next to the desk. Everything from like whole bins full of just flowers. Collections of weird mosses and lichens and scrub brush and oh my goodness, what else we have? Oh, my field grasses. Field grass is where static grass comes from. Where's the favorite though? Where's my favorite? Well, that's different. But anyway, in terms of grass and foliage and that, Jess is asking if I brought that piece to Adepticon 2015. I don't recall doing so, but there's a good chance that I did. I just don't remember it. I know I've taken it to shows, but all right. Zoop doop dooby doo doo. Hoop. We got some angel hair that we'll talk about later, and some cotton batting that we'll talk about later. That's for we're going to use this to talk a bit about or poly batting. Excuse me. This is not the cotton batting. Making spray on some water. But first, I'm going to talk about making some foliage on this yarn base. I don't believe I've ever opened either of these cans, so let me get those done. And that is why we're taking the carpet out of the studio. All right, so this is a fun one. And all I need for that is a bit of wood glue. And then, well, my material of choice. Zip that up, diddle that down. Maybe, there we go. And I'm using a palette knife more out of habit than anything else. But I'll use it to mix it too. So doing this just gives me a simple paste. I can paint it later. I can chip it away later, which is why I like to use the colored material. I have some Cellu clay that I'll use for more foresty bases. This stuff, it's just an instant paper mache clay. The challenge with that is you need to make sure that you add color to it when you're working with it, because what makes a nice forest textured floor with a bit of love, yeah, you chip it away, you don't want it to be white. And yeah, for a lot of this foliage is really just as simple as this. I'll get it in place, and then the one thing I need is a damp brush to work it. Brush is damp because then, you know, stuff won't stick to it as much. And I can make that clumpy. I can set it out more flat. I can also come in and sculpt some texture to it, some detail. At this point, I would embed other plants, flowers, things like that. I can also sprinkle on some dry cover for that to add a bit of top color to it, change the texture or the color a bit. Another fun one is because I have the goo here. I need a sock. Where's a feet? Do I have any feet? That doesn't really count as feet. Oh! Horse hooves. Perfect. Well, maybe if I can get them around the pin I have on there. No, alright. But yeah, I can embed footprints and stuff like that into this. Make it clear that somebody had walked through it if I want to make it more muddy. Otherwise, or more like mud. But otherwise, yeah, I just spread it out and add some texture to it this way, some color. You know, embed a couple of flowers in it at that point, and that really is how I get an effect like this. In that case, I used, I think 3 or 4 different fine foliage colors to accomplish the basic groundwork. And then just one of them, I forget which one, for the moss on the robot. And the same material with a bit less color in it. So I guess the robot was 2 colors. So then the same green that I used for the robot's moss with less of the color in it for the moss I put on the pillar there. And if you look at the pillar, you'll actually see that it's pulled away from the wall, the moss. That is this same material. And that has been on that display for years now. Once you get the glue on it, it's not terribly fragile. One of the things I did for that piece, because I knew it was going to be moving around for shows and such, was also put down a thin layer of wood glue on the pillar before I put the moss in place. But that and some grass tufts and flowers is really all it takes to get a beautiful, more realistic look out of your ground coverage. I generally find that static grass is the weakest of the choices available to us. Not to say it's bad, just the weakest option. All right, Jess, I hope that answers your first question, because now we're going to do something a little different. Now we're going to talk about dross. Jeffrey, hey, thanks for watching. Sorry that the connection's no good on your end. Really appreciate the compliment. And yeah, hopefully next time we'll be able to hold on to you for the show. But all right, next let's talk about dross. Dross, didn't grab a picture for this one, is what you'll see hanging from trees in the swamp and such. And we've got a few ways to do that. All of the ways that I do that start with this stuff, angel hair. Ugh. Yeah. It's a Christmas product. You can always find it, of course, on Amazon year-round. Although, since I'm recording this in September, it won't be long before it's available in stores and such. So what I'm doing is just, well, frankly, playing with this because it's fun. But I'm going to wind up using this and pulling off some tufts of it in a second. Let me grab a hunk of chunk. And this, I don't think this was a buck. And I've been using it to do dross for years. You can barely tell. One of the other things I have is one of my little wire form trees. Spider webs are artificial. It's from a different project. I generally test my artificial spider webs on the tree before I start putting them onto the model to make sure that I'm happy with the spray. And it's been fun to just cover it in spider webs over the years. But all right, what I need for this one, I've got no split screen. Hey, look at that. I've got my cup again. I'm putting more wood glue into it. I'm sure you're shocked. Shocked, I say. This time, I'm going to add a little bit of color. Please be antelope brown. It is, by the way, it's antelope brown. Whoa, and it's empty. How exciting. All right, I'll start with that. Get my crummy brush back and my water container. All right, get the brush wet. Mix up a nice gooey paste and add some water to it. All right, so now I've got my wood glue all colored. I'm going to take my water bottle. It's a little too much, so I'm going to pour some of that water out. It's easier to add more than try to take it away once you've stirred it. So we've got a few ways at this point we can do the dross. What I actually recommend is taking it and putting it on a baking sheet or a sheet of cellophane, something like that. Let it dry. You'll still be able to shape it and everything when you put it on your model. What I'm going to do today, of course, is quite simply stick it directly onto the tree right now. That is far from ideal because I'm going to get paint on the tree. Ripping off a little tuft. Here's what I've got. And I am going to get that in there. Mix it up. Pull it out. There we go, good. Let's get a bigger section. I'll just go ahead and use my fingers. I don't need to worry about getting messy today. So there we go. I've got my drossy mixture here. And I'll show you the tree here in just a second. Yeah. need some longer strands. Get little short sections. Let's overdo it. Let me grab a big old section here. Toss that right here in my trash. Boink. Grab another one of my artist towels, aka old sock. Grab a nice long section here. When I'm doing this onto cellophane, it's obviously quite a bit easier. You just drag it out, drag it through, drag it out, and let it rest on the cello. And then you get cotton stuck to you forever. Ah. All right. So I'm going to drag that down through. So the nice thing about letting this dry, right, so I can pull it apart when I'm letting it dry. But once it's done, I can just rip the fibers I want. They'll be dry. It'll be much easier to work with. But for now, I can take a section of this, grab my trusty tree. That's a good one right there. And knock it over. Hang that over a branch and pull down. Just get another little section here. Get my hands. And then, yeah, with just a little bit of work afterwards to spread it out, I'll get, well, I'll hold it up to this one. Lovely tree draws. Obviously, this is a quick and dirty job. But what I've actually always wanted to do, or see done rather, is a necron. Done like this, where it's cut it off at the knees, put it on our blasted wetlands bases, have it coming out of the swamp with the dross dripping off of its back. I think that would make a beautifully themed army, and I've always wanted to see it done. I'd do it myself, but well, with all my other projects, I'll fit that right in. Especially given that I just started completely repainting my kill team for no reason. Despite the fact that it was painted when I started. So, all right, let's get rid of that. So that's moss and dross and a bit of foliage. Anybody out there in audience land have a question or two related to that before I start putting the rest of this stuff away? Never heard of angel hair. Yeah, I am fortunate enough that I've never encountered it in a Christmas setting. I can't imagine covering a Christmas tree in that stuff. Apparently people do. I find that a bit frightful. Just throw a box of Necrons at Emily and she'll get it done. Hey, I can make that happen. I think I actually have Necrons in the warehouse. I'll check the loft the next time I'm there. All right. Well, I've got me cleaned up a bit, and I've got the desk cleaned up a bit. And that's one of those down. Let me get back to my base here. Let's see, where was I? All right. Well, and here's another quick look at how this turned out. Let me go ahead and manual focus again. Yeah, so you can see the texture is nice, and that it doesn't have to rest flat or uniform. Works out beautifully. All right. One second. Thought I'd take a look at audio sources there and see if that worked. Hopefully that little adjustment will make a big difference. All right, where did my drink go? All right, working on that one, and I was working on this one. Jess is promising to turn angel hair into the new glitter bomb, and I genuinely find that terrifying. Super staticky stuff. Clings to you. Yeah, it'll be the new glitter. It's terrifying. All right. Let me start chipping away at this guy here. One of the nice things about planning to chip a set is that when I'm pouring my hydrocal, I can be, oh, right, I need to change the white balance for you. A lot less cautious. I don't have to worry as much about putting it on a vibrating table or anything like that. Just because the bubbles aren't going to affect me at all. I'm going to find the bubbles and I'm going to chip them. I prefer that to having to be very careful pouring my plaster and getting all the bubbles out and everything. Anyone that's gone through all of that knows it can be quite a process. Really, really frustrating if it doesn't work. There we go. Now I'm coming in, pressing up from the edge slightly. One second, please. Sorry, I thought I heard somebody at the door. Probably just the dog getting up. I keep waiting for our dog to come in after her nap and tell me that she's ready to go outside. So hey, out there in broadcast land, is the audio at all improved by that setting I just changed? By the third episode, we should have this all down pat. I'll get it back to my old settings and then save that profile like a smart person would. Back it up. Emily says no. Well, all right. I'll fix my audio later. My apologies to you guys for this week. And remember, if you're out there and you have any questions, let me know. Happy to work on, well, whatever your idea is this week, too. So obviously the ruined temple bases are going to be substantially more ruined than the Silent Halls or the Imperial Halls bases. But what do you guys think? This big beautiful piece right here, does that have to be intact? I don't think it does. I don't think it does. I think I'm going to chip the heck out of that. Not a lot, but it needs to happen. Oh, how to paint marble for these bases when the crew gets set done up. Yeah, I actually have some examples of me painting marble right over here in the cabinet. Michael is asking if I ever use cork with bases. The answer is yes. I use cork all the time, actually. The rule for me is that if it looks like cork when you're done, you've done it wrong. I use cork as a base material, filler, but then I always cover it in, dirt, plaster as well if I'm trying to do like a large stone staircase, whether it was polished or rough-hewn stone. I would actually just stack up the plaster to make those stairs, and then cover them in a coat of plaster using my palette knife if I'm trying to keep them smooth, or just glopping it on and mushing it about if I'm going to chip it away and make it look like a rough-hewn stone staircase. You'll find cork in a lot of my bases. just doesn't look like cork when I'm done. Yeah, I can see 1, 2, 3 bases from here that are almost entirely cork. And one of my favorite is one of Ben Comet's Happy Monks that I had built on a base for a friend. And yeah, that's a big, tall piece of cork with the staircases made or covered in dirt, just like I described earlier. Yeah, kitty litter is the other one. You can make cork do a lot of neat things, particularly since there are different grades of cork. Most of the time people talk about using cork for bases, they're talking about cork sheet. I can see my stash of cork sheet from here. But there are grades of cork as well. You can find large chunks of cork, actual cork bark, that are amazing. Yeah, there's a lot of that material that you can use that, well, most of the time you don't want it to look like it started. You know, in the case of unique wood pieces, I've seen those used to good effect. But by and large, yeah, don't have your cork look like cork. And as for kitty litter, I have not yet seen that not look bad. But I suspect somebody could do it, but I haven't seen that yet. Same thing, just from a personal perspective, I get tired of seeing ballast used as basing material by itself. It's neat, particularly the extra fine ballast, little tiny pebbles, but they're all very uniform, and that's boring. To me. I think it's boring. Me bored. Alright. Where was I? Oh, it needs to be recognizable as a fluor, but we're going to chip you. Still chasing after the few bubbles that I might have missed. Make sure I know to chip away there. So now, because I want this to be rough, I'm going to push straight up this line, just like that. And that gave me a nice big chunk of burning break. I'm actually going to put a tiny drop of cyanoacrylite in here because I want to preserve those tiny rock chips. This way I'm not coming back later with ballast or anything else to try and create some gravel in here, some chips. Hang on a second, I need to get that off of the top first. It's actually like material put in place when it was done. All right. So with that, I'm going to bring that destruction this way. I want rough, so I'm going to push, break it a little less because I want this to be a little finer. And I don't want to mess up the work I've already done over there, of course. Following that up, I'm going to bring that crack to here. Go. All right. Gets me a nice straight structure to start off with. And let's get that on focus for you. Boom. So that's what I've got so far. And you can see the chips that I kept in here. And I'm going to bring this one up too. Says I. Since there's no one here to stop me. Oop, 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 oop. I like that chip, so I'm going to do the same thing. Get right in here. And go work somewhere else on this base so I don't mess that up. It's those little serendipitous chips, I think, that really make a damaged set like this work. So now, I'm being gentle, but I'm pushing intentionally a little randomly, kind of jigging my way forward to make those edges rougher. Letting it slip, letting it pop intentionally. Oop, my little chip right here came out. Glue didn't take. Let's try that again. Boop. I'm going to boop you right there. All right. There we go. And at that point, let me see if I can find my probe. Otherwise, I'll just use my hobby knife again. But I'd like a middleweight needle, and that I usually get from a probe. And that's effectively just a needle on a stick. And mine is, oh, no doubt somewhere over there on my child's workstation. It is yeah. Actually, I'll let you guys see this. Here we go. Going along to my kid's workspace. Up, 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 oh. Stuff's caught. There we go. So this is what he's got going on over here. And while I'm sure that several of my tools are on his desk, the odds of being able to find them are slim. So, all right, where's my hobby knife? Let's see. So now I'm getting in for the finer cracks. I want to have some very light surface cracking instead of just these big old things. Oh, move my thing again. Stay there. You thing? And this part is much more careful and methodical, and I spent a lot of time looking at impact craters and road cracks and all sorts of that stuff, particularly around the time that we were making the tablescapes tiles for that urban board. I wanted to make sure that the artists and I got the textures right. You only have to get it right once in that case, right? So, made sure we did. now I'm actually chipping at that line because I want that one to be a little rougher, just ever so gently. What'll be really fun is if anyone out there watching today gets one of the first of these and gets a chance to paint this. I think that'll be kind of fun, that you're there for its creation and you get to paint one of these up, and I look forward to seeing that. It's always fun to see what folks do with our products. A few things make me happier in a day than getting to see our products in action. Isolating a chip there. Oh, is somebody asking to see the 60mm bases? Is that what's happening? I can certainly show you the at least the unweathered masters for that. Getting this done is going to take me another couple of days of dedicated work. But for the 60s, let's see. I know I poured those. Here we are. These are the two 60mm designs. Yeah, these are quite fun. The Knight is the only one large enough, of course, to capture part of all three of the detail sections. But I also wanted to leave enough of the large open sections because I could have moved this down and caught, a little bit more of all three. Well, a little bit more of these two anyway. But again, to help it work with the ruined temple bases and the imperial halls that will come out next year. Oh, so Michael, you're asking how is it easy to drill into the plaster without cracking it? As long as you go very slowly, you should be fine. Bubbity, 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 bum. Not handy, but if it comes to it, if you need to see that in action, I have a bunch of plaster waste from this project in the garage, and I'd be happy to go get a piece of that and actually show you how I would take the pin vise to it. But the answer is don't try to do it quickly. Drill the base very slowly. Be consistent in your pressure. Yeah, let the drill do the work as you're spinning your pin vise instead of trying to push your way into the plaster. Plaster of Paris, of course, is much easier. And depending on what you're going to be using plaster on your bases for, it works just fine. Again, when I do the stone stairs and stuff like that over cork, that's just a thin layer of plaster, and even that I can drill through. Sometimes, however, if you're going to be doing a lot of plaster in a large area, or if you've got a big heavy model and you need a larger pin, in that case I might say go ahead and put your pin in place beforehand. It's not going to matter if the area directly under its foot is a little rough, because you can chip that away, you can sand that away, you can get it with files, whatever you need to do. But that way, if you've got, you know, like an 1/8 inch brass rod going into the foot of some big old monstrous creature or something, yeah, it's firmly embedded in whatever the base is, and you don't have to worry about cracking what may be a thicker layer of plaster at that point. And thank you for the question. It really is my favorite part of the job. I would teach all day, every day if I could. It's part of the reason the Workbench Wednesday series was so important to me personally. As a company, Work would definitely prefer it if I was sticking to product videos. And that makes sense. I would too. But yeah, I need that sanity outlet of being able to pick some projects just for kicks. And the old Ask Mr. Justin segment was one of my all-time favorites. I love being able to log in once a week and have questions from folks that I can help with. I'm going to start another segment. Well, might start another segment. I might just start adding it into this, called Grumpy Old Modeler. Because there's a bunch of old school modeling techniques that I and others have realized recently are just kind of disappearing, in part because so many of those old school styrene modelers and stuff are dying off. And in part, of course, because 3D printing makes so much of that easier. Even guys I know that are aces with styrene and can knock out, you know, beautiful scratch builds in an hour. Yeah, you can get in there and do it with 3D printing now, and the quality they're getting is pretty great. So yeah, stay tuned for some ranting about everyone should know this. Why doesn't anybody? Yeah, lots of really simple tips and tricks for working with styrene in particular. And since most of what we do is styrene modeling, oh darn it, glued myself to that chip I've been trying to keep. All right, it's the other direction so I'm not in the way of that chip. I'm just gonna improve one of these tile seams. Or not. Don't like it. So I'll chip it out. Needs more chipping anyhow. Alright, so I'm going to take a break from this one because I want to save that chip that keeps coming out. Let me show you what I've got. I'll talk a little bit of water after that. Let's see. Chickadooch. Here we are. Alright. So I'll set these aside, nice and flat on there, so hopefully that gets a chance to dry. Let's take another quick look. Let me see if my dross is dry. It is, it is. Let me see, let me get back to the front view only. So the dross is dried on our tree from earlier. Come on, focus. Smile on your mouth, huh? I'll bring it down to the front then and see what we can get, or the top. Change the gray balance back for you, or the white balance. Alright, so a bit over here is a little thicker than I'd like, but again, now that it's dry, well actually for that matter, now that it's dry, I can just slide it off because I didn't glue it in place. So I've got my dross, and I can still thin it out, open it up, cut sections, pull sections, whatever I like. And on a tree, yeah, we get that nice swampy effect. All the schmutz hanging off of our trees. Making wire trees will be another one of those things. Something I really enjoy and haven't done for a long time now. Of course, I haven't had much of an excuse to make a tree in a while now. All right, let me pull old Ahab and his base around here. Getting the Uhu tack off here. I had the model in place recently. All right, so this is a scene for old Ahab here. And I'll wind up getting him painted up in his sea coat and everything. But I made this little base for him. Get this out of the way. And you can see there's oh, there's one of my favorite spots. A little crab right here, eating a fish. Little crabs up there. And then you can see I started the water over here. Now, all this part is heavy gel that has some layers underneath it that I dry brushed. And that's fine, but it doesn't look much like water yet. And I'm going to have that spray, you can see where I started it here with the gel, come out up the top. And I'm going to do that with some batting. I've always used cotton batting for this. I had a friend recently recommend that I try some poly batting. I'm trying that. If it doesn't work out, well, that'll be an exciting problem we can overcome together next time. So what I'm doing in this case is moving the pad that fell down, grabbing some realistic water, putting it into another cup. I need one of my stenciling brushes. It's nice and stiff. I'll use tweezers just so I don't get all goopy this time. Another poking brush. I put them back. All right. And this is the poly batting I'll be using today. And that is going to help create some spray in our water here. So the realistic water is our gloss gel medium that I use for, well, obviously water, snow, mud, so many things. It's a great gel medium. Take this. I'm going to put it around in my, mix it in with my realistic water here. Scrape the excess on the sides. Watch it drip, 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 drip. Yep. And begin right here where we get some spray off of the pillar. So let me get another hobby towel. It's sock number 3 for today. And I'm going to take my stenciling brush here and start attaching this to the model. Sometimes I'll use the Water Effects product, just a heavier gloss gel behind some of this to help glue it in place. Now I'm just taking my other brush and getting some realistic water on some spots that manage to be dry. Don't want any dry spray. Can't have that. Nope, no sir. Never heard of it, but it's too smooth. Never heard of that. And as you can see, it's not resting flush with the rest of my piece here. You can see the nice sprays of color coming up through here too. So I'm going to bring more of it around. Make sure I get good spray. And of course that is going to dry very gloss because it is simply covered in gloss medium. So let's put that autofocus off again. Here we are. There it is. So you can see the first bit of this. Get the light off of here again. And how that texture is above and opaque compared to this. At least for the moment. All right. So let's get another section of that over here. I need some spray that comes up on the other side of this. So I can actually take my piece, get my tires out of the way here, and see how I feel about it in that space. And it looks like that's going to fit, so I'm going to go for it. Get it wet thoroughly this time. Don't miss anything. Get off the excess. Let it drip if it's going to drip. No, but I do have a spill over here, so I'm going to clean that up too real quick while I see it. All right. So, back to my spray. Boop! Spray number 2 in place. Going to get that to go here. Hold that down with my finger and start just pulling it where I want it to go. I need to pull it around the pillar. So I want that spray to be coming off of the pillar too. Pulling off some excess here, it's a little too long. So I'm pulling it up, hold that spot again, and away we go into here. Come on, you guys, get together. A little too long again right there. It's important to make sure your brushes are clean when you're doing this part. One of these is not. I should have known that that little guy right there had some pigment on it. Cleaning up a bit of the excess water effects. You can also hold your cotton in place and then brush it on. I find that less reliable. Given that I'm not concerned about an excess of gloss on my water, I prefer to build it, or make sure that my batting is thoroughly wetted. Really not happy with how this one section's coming. I might just take that out, let the other section dry, and do that bit later. I can't get the fineness of detail I want right now. There we go. So it's a good start. Get that autofocus off for you again. It's a good start, but it's a little rough at the moment. You can see I've got some strands over here that are too long, some spots that aren't connected yet. And that's just what I'm fiddling with now, is getting in here and texturing this so it looks more like it's spraying up. There we go. Hold that there. Yeah. Hold that nice and tight. Come on, yes. A little excess right there, but I can fix it. Oops. Ha, it stuck to me. Messed the whole thing up. There we go. I'm being picky this time, of course, because, well, this model is for me. It may wind up at a competition, but I just love it. I'm not doing this one with any pre-expectations or plans or anything else. It's just... I actually saw this piece of wood that it's on now at ReaperCon. I believe that was last year. And knew at the time I had to do a dock scene. So I got up from my seat and hit the vendor hall where I found Scale 75 selling Captain Ahab here. And the rest was history. All right, brushes are clean. Extra schmutz is off of my hobby tail. Let me give you guys one more look at the foaminess here. All right. So now I'll come back with another layer here. But you can see where the spray is going to start coming up. And I'll work its way right up through here so that it's coming out the top here, spraying onto some of that equipment. The other one that's going to be fun is I have a colored marble that I'm actually going to turn into a floating globe style fishing buoy. So that'll be sitting over here somewhere, and then, you know, the big woven basket around that. And Love Minis is asking what the white stuff is. In this case, it's a polyfiber batting. I normally use a cotton batting. I had a friend recommend this stuff instead, so I'm trying it today on one of my projects. And yeah, it's what lets me get all this nice spray through here. It's going to be more opaque, but since it's covered in the gloss effect, it'll have a nice glossiness to it. And even though the batting itself is opaque, I mean, we're still not talking about much, right? So yeah, it creates a really nice effect. Yeah, definitely too tuned to sell on it for me whether or not poly batting is as good as cotton batting, only because I need to see this dry, and that's going to take, to be dry enough for me to make the call, it's probably going to take 4 to 6 hours. Granted, I'll be checking on it nonstop today. Of course I will. I won't be able to stop myself. Yeah, a little worried about experimenting on a piece that I'm so invested in, but yeah, hey, You got to do it sometimes. I suppose I could have started just by testing, you know, some poly batting just on a piece of scrap plastic card or something, but where's the excitement in that? All right. Charles wants to know if there's a chance of seeing cloud making in the future. Sure. Little fluffy cloud? No? Doesn't work for you? It is the majority of cloud making and explosion making, for that matter, is generally batting. When it comes to explosions, I do actually prefer the polyfiber batting to cotton batting for that. Because it is a translucent plastic, light goes through it a little better, I guess is what I'm trying to say. In fact, do I have a light kit here? If not, I'll go get one, because that's actually quick and easy to do. But I have gunpla here, so I should have a light, if not the one I want. Ooh, is my PGRX 78-2 in here? Hello? Big old box. You are here. You are not here. No box for me. Tommy Matt bases, all of that stuff. Now, all right, let me see real quick if I have a light in here. I don't. I will be right back. I am going to go grab my lighting kit and show you what I mean about that. All right, so I know you were talking about clouds, but I'm going to talk about clouds while I do this. Hopefully I have everything I need to actually get, here, I'll just come along for the ride, get something lit up. I see a switch. I see a disconnected battery. Should be able to find a 9-volt. If I don't have a battery pack in here. So yeah, you were talking about clouds, but so the reason I'm talking about explosions is that I can talk about the one while I do the other. And the reason I like the polyfiber for the clouds is that translucency. The cotton batting is definitely more opaque. So you don't see through it as well. If you're trying to go for an opaque cloud, well then, hey, guess what? You have a good answer in cotton batting. A bit of hairspray to get you started, to give it some stiffness, then paint it, because paint is going to be what sells it as a cloud. I mean, effectively, you know, I was kidding earlier, but this plus some grays and blues, and a little bit of green at the bottom are going to give you a cloud, right? This is it. This is where it starts, though. The rest is just handling. What gets me is I have a rig all set up for one of my gunpla projects. It's all ready to go. And I thought that was here, but it's not. It's never as easy as you like, right? Oh, this one doesn't have it. Get a light of some sort. What do we got? Pink, blue, red. Let's get a red light in here. Maybe. Woo! It's like Christmas lights, only tinier and easier to break. Wow, this is exciting fun. All right, well, that is good enough because I found the cap for it. I'm going to get up one more time, though, to go get a battery. You can change seats again if you like. Alright, and I'm back from the garage. I just walked in with that kit that I was talking about. Alright, here we go. Let me find in Funisaki Rex's kit here some lights. In fact, for that matter, I've got some EL wire here I can show you with, and bulbies. Here is the battery up kit. And here we go. Oh, wait, what do we got? My audience is silly. I love you guys. Thank you guys for being funny today. All right, let's see. Boom! We got light. Looks like I already have a kit rigged up and everything. So that is more translucency than you get from cotton batting. Oh, hey, huh. Might help if I actually show you. For that, let me turn off all the lights here. So you can see I really get some nice translucency in here. And with that texture, I can do this very easily as a cloud. I can do this as an explosion, obviously different colored lights really for the explosion. There was a hairspray comment. Did you already address it? It was from Charles. Oh, there was a hairspray question. All the regular painting, all the fires and explosions should be using airbrush, which I don't have. Well, if you want to make fluffy clouds, I'm afraid you're really going to want an airbrush for that. You're talking about a fine spray. You need to be able to create a translucent color, and the only way to really do that on here is to spray it. I suppose you could try to get in there with some glazes or washes or something like that. I haven't tried. I do recommend an airbrush. It is an incredibly useful tool. A lot of people say, oh, it's just for base coating and things like that. It's absolutely false. It's for things like this as well. You can also do detail painting with it, more than just base coats. I mean, the vast majority of what I do is with an airbrush, and that includes most of my figures as well. But let me try to give an example of some EL wire in the bit here to show you just some orange in here. So make a little pocket. And just to give you an idea of the glow, pocket's too big. So you get that orange glow through there as well. Yeah, I don't like it with the EL wire. First time I've tried that. Not a success. Let's grab those red lights on here and just toss those on instead. Ooh, 3mm UV lights. Neat. Another fun one is I actually have some translucent bases in here that I cast up at one point. It's not a thing we really do, but we've done it by request a few times for special orders. Oh, that one died. That was exciting. Anybody get to see that? Fizzle, fizzle, pop. Alright, off you go then. Let's find another red one. I gotta be able to show you this. It's really neat. Hopefully this time. It doesn't pop. There we go. So even just with this, you know, inside of our shell here, once we've painted on the grays and whatnot on the inside, you can also do another layer of batting over the top of this. So I can spray this layer to make the core of my explosion, put another layer right over the top of it, and spray that. You can do this multiple times. So you can create a nice depth of texture and color in the explosion. It doesn't need to be a flat single color thing where this is, you know, all just sprayed on the outside and it makes the explosion white on the inside. Oh no, don't do that. You know, keep that core white so you get this nice, you know, real bright light coming through it. But yeah. Explosions and clouds are fun. Oh hey, my heel wire is still on. Now it's blinking. That was funny. But like I said, in the case of both clouds and explosions, I definitely 100% prefer the poly batting to the cotton batting because those translucent fibers really make a difference. And oh right, I was going to show off the fun light up base here. I don't even remember to put that with my Gundam kit again. Yeah, so that was the idea behind these. So you'd get a glow under your base. Not particularly practical, but it was a fun experiment. Alright, let me see if I can catch up on all the points we've even got here. How many things, stuff in the thing. There was a hairspray. Can I call anywhere but here? Anyone know the thing and the stuff? I was responsible to him. Anything hairspray? Just didn't the thing and the stuff in the thing. Alright, there we go. I guess we're good. I'm all caught up. I do appreciate you guys being goofs today. I hope you're like that next week. Take a quick look at Ahab's base here and see the progress as it starts to dry. There you go. You can start to see the spray forming now. Now what I will actually do at some point is get in here with tweezers again, with scissors, like my little tiny, I have some little tiny scissors. But you can see how the batting gives it that texture. Incidentally, while I prefer the poly batting for clouds and explosions for the reasons I've given you, that was the same argument my buddy made about using polyfiber for spray as well, that it's less opaque and it has that translucency to it, which helps sell the idea that it's spray. And it is still more opaque than it is going to wind up when it's finished because it has so much of the realistic water on it at the moment. Yeah, Brian is saying that he's wanted to light a model. And a lot of the time it's not practical. I know that a big chunk of my audience is wargamers. And for the most part, our models really aren't designed for that. We've been lucky that a few of them will manage them. But yeah, on the whole, they're not designed to accept lights. It's different with something like gunpla, where a lot of the Gundam kits actually have light kits sold with them or for them. Where you have heads that actually have a little unit that sticks in under their chin to light up their eyes and all of that. Yeah, and those are all things that are included in the kits. Or aftermarket stuff for kits that are actually designed to take it. Lots of open space, room to run wires. Yeah, wargaming, it's a lot tougher. And I find that most of the time, in that case, detailing something other than lights is more practical. The last Forge World commission I did, was for a Spartan tank, and we discussed briefly lighting that. They originally wanted us to open and close, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to put a Terminator in there and we'll light it up. We decided against that once I started building the kit, and wound up putting a visible engine into the back of it. So I cut out the entire engine platform, dremelled that out, put in an engine, put wire mesh over the top of that. Yeah, that was fun. But yeah, for wargaming pieces, I find that trying to light them is pretty impractical. There are some exceptions, but meh. Any other questions, folks? We're coming to the end of this week's Workbench Wednesday, and since all of my ideas are drying, or in the case of the bases, I'm going to take a little break on those, get my lunch, and then come back to work today. What else can I do for you guys? Any other questions you want us? How to build out a base, like the pier I did for Ahab, maybe next week. If we want to talk about display planning, I would be happy to do that. One of the other projects I've been meaning to get back to is the Zero Fighter Mech from Industria Mechanica. It's a great piece. I did an engine up for it. Very much kit bashed. Little engine for it. And I can start talking about the display that I'm planning for that, because that's going to be a big one. I want to make a hangar space for that, and rather than confine my stage, I'm going to expand my stage for this one. Yeah, in no small part so I can show off in the background, build a nice facade, do things like put old newspaper and propaganda posters up to cover the windows, things like that. I'll actually be glass painting windows because I'm a crazy person, which is true. I can say it because it's true. Yeah. I'll put the mic back on for the last couple minutes here. How's that? Yeah, if folks really want to see display stuff, and it sounds like several of you do, I'll be happy to dedicate next week's show to doing display stuff. That'd be great. Bases like Ahab's are very much a passion for me. I like making those large display bases. Cool. Well, folks, if that's all we've got this week, I'm going to thank you again for tuning in for another Workbench Wednesday, and very much look forward to seeing you guys next week. In the interim, happy hobbying, always. Mr. Justin out.